Could the future of an entire continent be unfolding right now in a place most of the world hardly notices while the West grapples with internal chaos and fading influence? Something unexpected is happening in West Africa. In a country that many global powers once dismissed, a bold new vision is taking root: Burkina Faso. Yes, that small, often overlooked nation is making moves that could rewrite Africa's future and the West. It's watching nervously from the sidelines. At the center of it all is President Ibrahim Traoré, a leader who's not just talking about change. He's building it quite literally. Burkina Faso is in the process of creating a brand new city. But this isn't just a construction project. It's a statement, a warning, a blueprint for an Africa that no longer plays by old rules. The city they're building is about more than buildings and roads. It's a symbol, a turning point. It says, we don't need Western handouts. We don't need permission. We're doing this our way. And here's the part that stings for the old powers. They're doing it without Western aid. No strings, no deals with former colonizers. Just a vision driven by African leadership and purpose. For decades, global powers have mined Africa's wealth, while pretending to help gold oil strategic influence. The real interest was never about partnership but profit. And let's be honest, the West hasn't exactly hidden its ignorance or disdain. Remember when President George W. Bush called Africa a country, or when Trump, well, we all heard what he said. But now Africa is pushing back hard, and Burkina Faso is leading the charge. The new city, often called the Renaissance City, is more than just an urban dream. It's a powerful symbol of self-reliance and resistance. It's Africa saying, we're done waiting, we're done begging, and we're done believing the lie that we need saving. As Western nations struggle under the weight of their own contradictions, greed, division, and crumbling systems, Africa is rising with clarity and purpose. This isn't just a new chapter. This could be a new era. Burkina Faso might just be the spark that lights the fire of an African transformation. And if you're not paying attention yet, now's the time, because what's happening there could change everything. Before we get into why this new city in Burkina Faso could change everything, you've got to understand what it took to get here. This isn't just about building roads and buildings. It's about breaking centuries-old chains. For hundreds of years, the West built its fortune by bleeding Africa dry, first through brutal colonialism and later through the quieter but no less damaging grip of neo-colonialism. They took the land, the gold, the oil, and left behind systems designed to keep Africa dependent and divided. But here's the twist. The West didn't see coming. The world is shifting and the old empires are falling apart. Right now, Europe and the United States are in the middle of their own unraveling. Political chaos, corrupt leadership economies. On the edge, social divisions growing wider by the day. The UK stumbled through Brexit and came out weaker. The US locked in a political soap opera that never ends. The image of Western stability and power is cracking and fast. Meanwhile, Africa is waking up. The continent is finally shaking off the shadow of colonialism and leading. That charge is Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré, who's not afraid to break from the script. He's not begging for loans or waiting for approval. He's building literally a new path forward. Enter the Renaissance City project. This isn't just a housing development. It's a bold statement. Africa is done playing catch-up, while Western countries are stuck trying to hold together fragile economies and broken systems. Burkina Faso is laying down the foundation for something new, something ours. The West has long relied on a playbook that's no longer working: exploit, extract, control. But Africa isn't staying quiet anymore. The same tactics the West once used to destabilize rising nations, they're being exposed, and African leaders, people, and movements are pushing back like never before. This moment is bigger than just one city. It's a turning point. Burkina Faso's Renaissance Project says, in no uncertain terms, we don't need your aid. We don't need your permission. We're not waiting anymore. And the West, for the first time in a long time, it's the one playing defense. The age of one-sided power is ending. The next chapter of Africa's story. It's being written now, and this time by Africans. But wait, if Africa is finally rising, why? Does that seem to spell trouble for the West? Before we unpack that, take a second to like, share, and subscribe. If you care about Black culture, history, and identity, you're in the right place. Now let's dive back in. For decades, the West claimed it, wanted to help Africa develop. So here's the million-dollar question. If Africa is finally doing just that on its own terms, why is the West suddenly so uncomfortable simple? It was never really about helping the West's influence relied on Africa. Staying weak, divided, and dependent. But that era is ending and fast. While Western nations spiral into economic recession, political chaos, and deep social division, Africa is rising not on borrowed time or borrowed money, but through its own power, vision, and leadership. And right at the heart of this momentum is Burkina Faso's bold new dream, the Renaissance City Project. This isn't just a construction plan, it's a statement, a symbol, a line in the sand. For too long, the narrative was Africa can't survive without us. Now President Ibrahim Traoré and leaders like him are proving that not only can Africa survive, it can lead. This city represents independence, pride, and a future defined by African priorities, not foreign agendas. The promise of 50,000 homes. That's not just a statistic. That's hope turning into reality. It's the start of a broader movement, where African nations are no longer waiting to be saved. They're standing up, owning their futures, and building from the ground up. Meanwhile, look at the West. Once powerful economies like the US are drowning in debt, struggling with inflation and facing political systems that fewer and fewer people trust. Europe isn't doing much better. Its union is shaky, its politics divided, and its future uncertain. Here's the twist: the more Africa rises, the more the cracks in the West's foundation become visible. Because the truth is, they never expected to lose control. But that's exactly what's happening. This moment is about more than a city or a country. It's about power shifting finally toward the people who've long been denied it. And this is just the beginning. While the West is struggling to hold itself together, something incredible is happening in Africa, led by bold thinkers like Ibrahim Traoré. African nations are crafting a new future, one where they don't just survive the global system, they redefine it. At the center of this shift is something that's changing. The game, Burkina Faso's Renaissance City Project. This isn't just a city, it's a rejection of the old playbook. The one the West used for decades to keep Africa in a cycle of dependence and control. Traoré is sending a loud and clear message. Africa doesn't need saving. It needs space to build. Think about it. For years, the West offered development in the form of housing and infrastructure projects funded, of course, by institutions like the World Bank and IMF. But let's be real, those weren't gifts. They were debt traps dressed up as aid. Behind the loans were contracts that served one side, and it wasn't Africa. Now that model is cracking. Burkina Faso is doing something different. The 50,000 homes planned for Renaissance City aren't just houses. They're a foundation for freedom. They're being built by local workers with local materials and backed by African capital. No foreign lenders, no billion-dollar interest bills, no conditions. This is Africa investing in Africa. And that's exactly why it's such a powerful move. But this project is about more than bricks and concrete. It's about sovereignty. It's a statement to the world that Africa can and will build its future on its own terms. No middlemen, no foreign puppeteers, just raw vision and local ownership. And here's the part that stings for the West: they can't control it. Historically, Western-backed housing projects came with strings often invisible but always there. Loans disguised as help. Partnerships that gave more power to foreign investors than to the people actually living in the homes. In the end, those deals left many African nations buried in debt and stripped of decision-making power. Not this time. The Renaissance City flips that entire system on its head. It's not just about urban development. It's a symbol of Africa taking its power back. A movement built by Africans for Africans without approval or assistance from the so-called global gatekeepers. And that's what makes it revolutionary. So while Western economies teeter and their influence fades, Africa is quietly and confidently stepping into its next chapter. And this time, Africa's not asking, it's leading. This isn't just another construction project. It's a bold new chapter. A clean break from the old rules that once kept African nations tethered to foreign approval and outside expectations. But Burkina Faso flipping the script. This time it's not about chasing validation from Western powers or trying to charm foreign investors. It's about claiming its place as a trailblazer in a rising self-defined Africa. Imagine a city built by Africans for Africans, not just buildings but a movement. Wealth that's created here stays here. Prosperity that flows into local communities, not offshore accounts. This is what the Renaissance city represents: independence, pride, and a fresh vision for what Africa can be when it writes its own story. But here's the twist. The West isn't ready for this. You see, many Americans still view Africa through a blurry, outdated lens. Decades-old narratives paint the continent as nothing more than a charity case plagued by conflict, corruption, and crisis. That image is embedded in everything from media coverage to public perception. So when something like Renaissance City rises, don't be surprised if the headlines shrug it off. Western media might call it just another development project, as if they're already bracing for failure. Why? Because deep down the idea of an Africa that no longer relies on the West makes them uneasy. And they should be uneasy. The world is shifting. The power the West once held over global economics, politics, and influence is slipping. Their dominance relied on keeping others dependent, financially, militarily, diplomatically. But now that control is crumbling, Africa is waking up and standing tall. Burkina Faso's bold move is more than a national project. It's a spark, a signal, one that says, African nations no longer have to play by someone else's rules. Renaissance City isn't just concrete and steel. It's a declaration of freedom. And here's what the West fears most that others will follow. That self-reliant, forward-looking people first. Africa is not just possible, it's already happening. The illusion of Western supremacy is fading, and Africa is just getting started. As Western economies struggle under the weight of their own excess and debt, a quiet but powerful shift is happening elsewhere on African soil. Countries like Burkina Faso aren't waiting around for handouts or permission anymore. They're laying the foundation for a future that's bold, independent, and built on their own terms. At the center of this new chapter is Renaissance City, the brainchild of President Traore. But make no mistake, this isn't just another infrastructure project. It's a statement, a declaration, a vision of an Africa that's no longer reacting to the world, but reshaping it. And that shakes the West. For generations, the West held the pen and wrote Africa's story. They controlled the money, the media, the resources, and in many ways the narrative itself. But that era is fading fast. Their influence is slipping, and there's little they can do to stop the momentum building across the continent. Renaissance City is the beginning of a much bigger movement. It's not just about bricks and mortar, it's about rewriting what power and leadership look like in the 21st century. This time when Africa shows up at the global table, it's not coming as a guest, it's coming to lead. Of course, the Western media will try to downplay it. They'll call it symbolic or ambitious with a skeptical tone, quietly hoping it won't succeed. Because if it does, it proves something uncomfortable, that Africa doesn't need them anymore. But the truth is already out. The West is in decline and Africa is rising. As Renaissance City rises from the ground, it's more than a skyline. It's a signal, a rallying cry to other African nations that they can chart their own course, build on their own strengths, and thrive without foreign dependency. And let's talk impact. The economic significance of this project is massive. This isn't just about building homes, it's about building futures, job skills, innovation, a local economy that serves the people of Burkina Faso. Not foreign corporations looking to extract wealth and leave. Traore's vision is rooted in self-reliance, in dignity, in progress. Renaissance City is Africa saying, we've got this, in the world it's finally going to have to listen. This project, it's a game cure funded with African money, built by African hands and designed to serve African people. Renaissance City is more than just a development. It's a bold declaration of economic independence, and frankly, it's got the West rattled. For decades, African nations have been trapped in a cycle, forced to borrow from Western institutions like the IMF and World Bank, only to be buried under crushing debt and impossible terms. These weren't just loans, they were shackles, tools of control, and for too long they worked. But President Traore is tearing up that old script. He's not asking for permission. He's not playing by their rules because he understands something powerful. Real growth doesn't come from handouts. It comes from within. Renaissance City is that vision in motion. By using local resources, hiring local workers, and reinvesting the benefits back into the country, Burkina Faso is showing the world a different way forward. One where the wealth created stays, home where it uplifts the people, not foreign shareholders. Compare that to the Western model. Big corporations sweep and extract profits and leave behind debt, poverty, and broken promises. But this time that cycle ends here. And here's the thing, the West knows they can't compete with this model because it challenges everything. Their system is built on extraction, exploitation, and control. They're used to growing stronger by keeping others weak. But Africa is flipping the table. Renaissance City is just the beginning. It's a blueprint for economic freedom, and others are already watching. Other African nations are seeing that there is another path forward, one that doesn't involve begging for aid or bending to the will of global lenders. Meanwhile, the West is facing its own unraveling, rising debt, broken industries, job losses, cracks forming in a once dominant economy. The same system they used to dominate others is now eating itself from the inside. But Africa is investing. In itself, Renaissance City isn't just about what's being built today. It's about what comes next. Roads, homes, jobs, innovation. It's about long-term growth. It's about sovereignty. It's about keeping Africa's wealth in Africa where it belongs. The message is clear. The future isn't being handed out, it's being built, and Africa's holding the blueprints. We all know how it goes. Every time Africa takes a bold step forward, the West is quick to poke holes. So before they even ask, let's talk about it. Is Renaissance City sustainable? That's the question they'll throw around pretending to care. Meanwhile, they'll keep digging into African soil, pulling out resources, with no concern for the environment or the people who live on that land. The West loves to talk about going green. They push their clean energy agendas and climate pledges like they're doing the world a favor. But behind the scenes, they continue to profit off Africa's raw materials, fueling their industries while telling Africans to slow down development for the planet, of course. But President Traore isn't falling for the hypocrisy. Renaissance City is being built with true sustainability in mind. Not because the West said so, but because it's what's right for Burkina Faso and its people. This isn't some PR stunt. Traore is putting action behind the words eco-friendly construction, renewable energy, reforestation, and a deep respect for the land that has always sustained African communities. It's sustainability, by design for Africans by Africans. And here's the truth. The West won't say out loud. They're not upset because they think Africa's doing it wrong. They're upset because Africa's doing it without them. Renaissance City is breaking free from outdated energy, systems, and foreign dependence. While Western nations cling to their exploitative models and give lectures about climate change, Africa is building a future that works for itself. The West's version of sustainability. It's smoke and mirrors. Empty. Promises wrapped in diplomacy, while behind the curtain they keep taking more than they give. But that playbook is old, and Africa's not playing along anymore. Traore's vision is rewriting the rules. Renaissance City is proof that Africa can lead in sustainability, innovation, and development all on its own terms. And what does the future hold? Hope Power Ownership. Renaissance City is more than buildings and solar panels. It's a symbol of what's possible when Africa takes control of its own story. Meanwhile, the West is starting to feel the weight of its own greed. Their systems are cracking, their dominance fading, Africa is rising. And this time the world can't look away. The message is clear. The future isn't waiting for approval. It's already being built in Burkina Faso. This isn't just about Burkina Faso, it's about something bigger, much bigger. Renaissance City is the spark, but the fire it's lighting stretches across an entire continent. We're witnessing the beginning of a movement, a true African awakening, one where nations are no longer being used as pawns in someone else's game, but are standing up, claiming their power, and writing their own future. For far too long, Africa's story was told by others, but that's changing. Right now we're entering a new era, where African nations are setting the agenda, not following it. As the West faces its decline economically, politically, and morally, Africa is rising, and Renaissance City is just the first step. This project isn't just about buildings or roads, it's about sovereignty. It's about proving that African countries can lead in the most important conversations of our time: innovation, sustainability, and economic growth. No more waiting for handouts. No more dancing to someone else's tune. The spotlight is shifting, and the future, it's African. Of course, the road ahead won't be easy. Big visions take time and bold leadership. So how long before Burkina Faso fully realizes this dream? That depends on a few key pieces falling into place: stronger infrastructure, consistent investment, political stability, and the ability to push back against the pressure from outside forces that still want to pull the strings. Right now, Burkina Faso's economy is growing, though it's still catching up to some of its neighbors. The country's GDP has been climbing steadily between 4% and 6% in recent years. Not explosive, but meaningful. And if that momentum continues and accelerates through projects like Renaissance City, there's serious potential for transformation, with the right focus on agriculture, education, industry, and technology. Burkina Faso could change its story dramatically over the next few decades, but full independence from the grip of foreign aid and the eradication of poverty and unemployment, that will take time, persistence, and unity. Still, here's the bottom line. The foundation is being laid. Burkina Faso is building more than a city. It's building a blueprint, and that blueprint is inspiring nations across the continent. Renaissance City is the first step towards something historic, something unstoppable. The age of Western dominance is fading. The age of African leadership has arrived. Looking ahead, a realistic guess is that Burkina Faso could reach true self-sufficiency within the next 30 to 50 years, if it keeps growing steadily, and leaders like President Traoré stay committed to independent economic policies and sustainable development. By then, Burkina Faso could be a major force in Africa's economy. Bustling industries, a confident and empowered population, and far less reliant on outside powers. Think about it. Western countries took centuries to get where they are today, but Africa, especially countries like Burkina Faso, has the chance to leapfrog that timeline. Thanks to modern technology, innovation, and a firm stance against exploitative foreign influence, the rise could happen much faster. Renaissance City is a bold first step, no doubt, but the bigger journey to full development, that'll take dedication, building industries, investing in education, and fostering homegrown innovation. All from within the West. They've had their era of exploitation, but that time is running out. Burkina Faso's Renaissance City is proof positive. Africa doesn't need the West's approval or their aid. Africa is more than ready to build a future that's prosperous, independent, and sustainable. Meanwhile, the West is struggling, facing internal chaos, shaky economies, and leadership failures. The tide of African sovereignty is rising, and there's no stopping it. So here's the question. Do you believe the future belongs to Africa? What happens if this progress keeps rolling? Where do you see Burkina Faso in the next few years? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to keep watching stories like this, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss out. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.